Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 364 with Mac and Mac. When you do it on Monday mornings early, you get Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com, who jumps on with us all the time. Jeff Kerr, we were just talking about Fletcher Cox and a report that he's probably going to retire at some point during this offseason, kind of open-ended. If that is the case, how difficult is it going to be to replace Fletcher Cox, both from a production standpoint and a leadership standpoint on the Eagles?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I'll just say this with Fletcher Cox. I feel like he was the voice a lot of people turned to when things were going bad, and he definitely isn't one to shy away from his opinion, which I think the Eagles will miss in that regard. He did have a good year last year, and I heard personally that if they would have won the Super Bowl the year before, he might have done this a year earlier. So I was always wondering if 2023 was going to be his last year, if he just signed like a one-year deal just to finish his career in Philly and try to get a second Super Bowl ring. And he still might have ambitions of that based on last year. It might be somewhere else. But Fletcher Cox, to me, and John, you were with me that day on Locker Room Cleanout Day. It just seemed like to me he was talking like a player who was kind of on his way out.
Yeah, and more so Jordan Davis was talking like a player who knew Fletcher Cox was on his way out. So I think, and he cleaned out his locker, which he's never done before. So the assumption of, he just wanted to do some spring cleaning, didn't match to previous years. So there's certain guys who know they aren't going to be back and they get the heck out of there. And there's certain guys that know they're going to be back and they keep their stuff around. And that was the first time Fletcher turned in that direction. So I think it was a clear indication that he was thinking about it, certainly. And as I brought up with Jody in the first segment, I don't know if you heard, Jeff, but people can change their minds. They can always change their minds. And he could want to, sort of do what Linval Joseph has done and Dominican Sue in the past. He can go that route and say, I don't want to go through training camp. I don't need that nonsense. And if he could do it here, he can do it somewhere else. And we'll see how it shakes out. But the Eagles almost have to start moving toward Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and build a foundation. And I think that's Vic Fangio's sort of job description. Hey, Vic, go build this defense around these two particular guys. That's the foundation. And if you have to do that, well, there's less playing time available for Fletcher Cox. And I think he's a proud guy as well. I'm not sure he wants to accept that Brandon Graham role. So it's kind of a tough situation for the Eagles as well.
I would agree there. So I've always said the Eagles have to get younger. Now, granted, there were always some exceptions, and the core four is one of them. But yeah, I would agree with you. Fletch is a proud guy. He knows he can still start in this league, play at a high level. And if he wants to play for another organization will take him, and they'll take him to be the player that he is. But if Fletch says to himself, you know what, I'm good playing 12 years with one team. I've accomplished all I want to accomplish. I'm ready for my next phase of life. Who's to blame him? I mean, I still think it's 50-50 with Jason Kelce right now. By the way, I'm expecting a decision this week on that.
Yeah, Travis is in town, evidently. So,
all right. One more Fletcher question before we move on. And we know he's got a pretty big fan in the organization, the general manager, who had a picture of him up in on his wall in his office, that Howie's a big Fletcher guy. And I'm not saying Howie should rethink his entire cap structure just to make Fletcher, but how much sales job do you think Howie does to try and talk Fletcher out of it? John, if you've said it once, you've said it 4 times so far this morning. I think you're right. Fletcher could change his mind. All right, so he's leaning toward retirement. How hard should Howie Roseman try and make him change his mind? Talk him out of it. Say, we need you. We have to have you. You're a key guy in this locker room. Don't walk. Please, Fletcher, don't go. How much should Howie Roseman be trying to do that for getting Fletcher Cox back?
Jeff? Oh, were you talking to me or John there?
Both.
Both. But Jeff, you're the guest. We'll let you go first.
You can go. You can go ahead, John.
Yeah. Look. If he wanted to come back for 1 year, $5 million, I think he'd be back. I don't think he wants to be back. So it's kind of like,
So you think Howie should insult him with a $5 million offer off the season that he had?
I think it's just, do you want to play? Do you want to pay your fourth defensive tackle $10 million a year? I think the answer to that is no. Now, does he deserve to be the fourth defensive tackle? I think the answer to that is no. But again, you're trying to serve two masters as a GM. And it's not only about this year, it's about 2 years, 3 years down the road. And I think they want to kickstart. I mean, soon you're going to be talking about, Milton Williams has been here for a while. And you got to start talking about extensions. Is he going to be here? You have to build, you have to get younger, as Jeff said. And I think they are at that point at defensive tackle almost by design. They drafted these guys. They know, and you don't draft guys with premium picks to not play them. Now, if they fail miserably, all right, like Jalen Reagor, then you got to shift course. But these guys haven't failed. They're all pretty good players. You can argue Jordan Davis isn't as good as some people had hoped. I think those people didn't understand what type of player he is, but that's a different conversation. You can talk about Jalen Carter. Well, he wasn't as great in the second half as the first half, but he's pretty damn good in the first half. And you can talk about Milton and say, well, he's not what you expected, but I don't agree with those people. So at what point do you turn the page and say, I drafted these guys, I got to play these guys more?
But here's the reason why I think it's a legitimate question. We're talking about defensive tackle. It's a rotational position. If this was a start or backup question, okay, fine. If you're telling Fletcher he's got to be a backup, you come to the determination you got to get your young guys in there. You're now a backup, Fletcher. Yeah, I got reason to walk away if I'm Fletcher Cox, and you can try and suck me in for a backup role. No, I'm not doing that. I was the most consistent player on the defense. How much are we changing? How many positions, how many snaps a game are we talking about that much more that you got to give Jordan Davis? And it's not like Jordan Davis and Milton are all going to play 85% of the snaps next year. There's still going to be guys who are going to have to come in and get them off their feet. Why can't it be Fletcher Cox? And instead of them playing 65, 75% of the snaps, they're only paying 60% of the snaps. That's where it's not adding up for me. Time to move on from Fletcher Cox. He's not necessary anymore. Yeah, he is, because the position dictates you got to have someone else.
Well, it is, but that's what I was saying. It is a rotational position, but he's number one in the rotation. So if you look at last year, 721 snaps for Fletcher Cox, 599 for Jalen Carter, 561 for Jordan Davis, 522 for Milton Williams. He's number one. Now he knows, and he's talked about it. They drafted these guys at best number 3 or number 4. He doesn't want that role. Like Brandon Graham wants that role, accepts that role, understands that role. He's not at the stage where he's saying, oh, I need to play less than these guys.
I look at it as a Bobby Taylor, Troy Vincent situation from 20 years ago. So Eagles drafted Leo Shepard. They drafted Sheldon Brown early. It's like what John said. You're using these premium picks on these guys, not to just play, but to start. And Bobby and Troy could still play when, Bobby had an injury in 2003, but they could still play and start in the National Football League when they were free agents. And the Eagles said, "What, you guys are on the north side of 30. See you later. We got Lito, we got Sheldon." And they may be looking at precedent right now, like Fletcher Cox. We know you could still play, but it's time. And Leo Shepard became an all-pro, and Sheldon Brown was a good starting cornerback in this league for a long time. And I think we would take that out of Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, John.
Yeah, well, Jalen, I mean, like I said, you have to build this deep. You literally have to build this defense on Jalen Carter and his skill set moving forward. That, to me, there's no question about it. And I think the Fletcher, there's no question about it. And as I said, 599. If 599, and that's what Jalen played last year, if that stays the same, that's a disaster for the Eagles, and or he got hurt. And obviously, I'm not talking about injury, but if he's out there for 17 games, you want him to play more and more and more and get better and better and better. And Fletcher knows this. He talked about it. Look at who they drafted. That's what he said at defensive tackle. I mean, it is what it is. You take somebody with the 13th overall pick, and then the next year you take somebody with the 9th overall pick, they're going to play.
And then you're going to
get too.
And then you're going to get to the point. How can you? And we're at now with Jalen Carter. How the heck do you take him off the field?
Because everybody takes defensive tackles off the field.
Not on impact play. Not on impact plays.
Here's what you said, Jeff. Off the field. Are we talking off the field on impact plays or off the field? Are you suggesting to me that Carter should play 95% of the snaps next year for the Eagles?
If he can.
Yeah, if he can, yeah.
Aaron Donald doesn't play 95%.
He's up there.
He's pretty close. I bet he's
very
90.
close. He's very close.
How many interior defensive linemen in the league do you think play 90% of snaps, percentage wise?
Not a lot, but but
the elite ones do.
And early in Fletcher's career, earlier he was one of those guys who played maybe not 90, but every year almost complaining Jeff Kerr and Jim Schwartz. Jim would say, "Boy, we got to get we got to get those snaps down." And every year he wouldn't, because the key points of the game, you don't want to take them off the field. And that's, great players. And yeah, Aaron's one of those players. It happens with edge rushers too. Like Max Crosby never leaves the field. I mean, you have to have that. You have to have that motor, and you have to have that conditioning, and that's a concern. We
don't know that either of those Georgia guys have that yet.
No, we don't.
We know they have the talent, but we don't know that they have that motor and or the desire to be out there 90 to 95% of snaps. That's hopeful thinking from an Eagles standpoint.
Yeah, but again, I think the standpoint is you're talking about a proud guy. To me, it's easy. It's easy if Fletcher wanted to accept stepping back and say, "All right, you know what? It's their time. I'm going to be the role player. I'm going to be the guy who fills in." I think it would be easy. He'd be back. But I think it's difficult because he can still play. He still wants to play if he does play. And here he sees the landscape. So to me, it's Fletcher's decision. Do you want a lesser role, lesser money probably? Do you want to go somewhere else, or do you want to retire?
He's a top 50 free agent. He's
he can play.
Yeah, he's going to get a starter's job somewhere, and probably north of $10 million, because that's the going rate. He's a good player.
And it's only going up with the salary cap. So how do you pay everybody if you're the Eagles? That factors into it as well.
Well, that's the same thing with Hassan Reddick. How do you pay him? Because you need to. Because you need the player. Because the salary cap did go up, and guess what? He deserves to be getting 23, 24, 25 million. If the Eagles decide, we can't get to that number, go ahead and replace him. And I say the same thing about Fletcher Cox.
I agree with you, Trey, but my issue always is when I look at those numbers, 30th, 31st, 32nd, 24th, 26th, in major defensive categories, how many of these guys do you really want to keep?
Well, that's fair. The defense was terrible, but
I'll point my finger at guys like Roby rather than Fletcher Cox and Hassan Reddick as to why.
Oh yeah, but they're not coming back anyway. I agree. I agree with you. It was kind of like when the Eagles were bad. Again, they were still emerging as a defense, but Hugh Douglas was a good player on the bad defense, and before Jim Johnson straightened everything out, or Brian Dawkins in his early years. Those are the guys you keep. So that's where I would agree with you with the paying Hassan Reddick.
Right. They got to keep Hassan. All right. The other big rumor over the weekend was Eagles could have interest in a reunion with CJGJ. We know when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson left for the Lions, it was just a one-year deal, a good one-year deal. They gave him $8 million, and then he ended up getting hurt on them. So certainly didn't live up to the contract. That's just the luck of the game. Was a playmaker when he's here. The Eagles got very little playmaking out of the safety position this year. But John's there every single day. You're there often enough, Jeff. Kind of a high maintenance guy. He's not afraid to speak his mind and act up and act out. You got a new defensive grouping as the coaches, the coordinator, and the majority of the coaches underneath them. CJGJ now a better fit, a lesser fit for the Eagles. What would you think about a CJGJ reunion, Jeff?
And by the way, I got to break in, guys. Jason Kelce, no keg videos this year. I've come to a decision and will address it in a press conference this afternoon. So Jason Kelce's going to, as I mentioned, Travis Kelce is in town, was doing something. Yeah. I do not think Jason Kelce's coming back, but we shall see. It's going to happen today, this afternoon.
Thanks, Jason. I'm packing for Vegas today.
No keg videos. Is that the way he specifically?
Yes, that was exactly from Jason.
I actually enjoy this, by the way. He's doing this on his own terms, and this isn't like R.I.P. to Chris Mortensen, but I always thought it was cool. Mort was the guy Peyton Manning told, and look, we're going to hold off. I like how Jason's doing this on his own terms, by the way.
Good for him. Yeah. He talk about a guy who deserves it. He gets to call all the shots. And the fact that it seems like he's calling it today. Press conference, said John. So you think something's going to happen down at the Novacare complex?
Yeah, I would think so. Press conference this afternoon. Nothing official from the Eagles yet. I'm sure it'll come soon. But yeah, I would think Jason's big enough that they're not going to do it on Zoom, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
it is a Zoom world. I would hope not.
And while I certainly agree with what Jeff just said, that good on Jason, he gets to make all the calls here, do it when he wants, how he wants. I certainly agree with every single bit of that. It's a bummer. And one of the all-time great Eagles, and I mean all-time great, going back to the beginning of the Steagles, if you so desire.
On the Mount Rushmore. That's what he is. He's on the Mount Rushmore.
Absolutely right. He's on the Eagles Mount Rushmore. Agree with that, John?
Yeah. Boy, well, I got to think about Mount. Obviously,
Steve Van Buren, Chuck Bednarik.
Chuck Bednarik. Yeah, there's a lot of, if you go back, and there's a lot of Hall of Fame players, but he's in the conversation. I would say the only two, no doubt, slam dunks are Reggie and Chuck Bednarik.
Yeah, and B-Dog.
Then you could argue. Well, that's what I'm saying. Then you can argue.
Yeah. B-Dog's definitely in the conversation.
Yeah, he's definitely in the conversation. Any of the Hall of Famers are in the conversation. Tommy McDonald's got to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in the Hall of Fame, you're in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, Jason will be in that conversation. And either way, he's a great Eagle. So if you want to boil it down to 4, I don't know if I can go there, but he's certainly in the conversation, and that's good. That's really good, especially coming from a 6th-round pick. We just went through the combine, and, some of his testing athletically back in the day, as people have kind of caught up with it. Now people look at Jason Kelce's testing. You didn't know. Nobody knew except Howard Mudd. Howard Mudd was the one who said, "Oh, he's going to be a starter." Howie loves telling that story. And he's like, great. He's going to be a starter. No, right now, as a rookie, he's going to be a starter. And Howie's like, settle down. And ultimately turned into that type of player.
He plays a pretty good center here, too, in Jamal Jackson.
Yeah.
He wasn't a bad player.
Yeah, so he is a special player until it's official. But yeah. And nobody. We talk about all this angst and CJGJ. I'm sorry, I had to interrupt you there, Jody.
No,
and we talk about players, having difficulty playing in Philadelphia. I don't think anybody has been understands Philadelphia better than Kelce. I don't think any certainly in the modern era, there's never been an athlete who understands Philadelphia better than Jason Kelce.
I always thought Jason grew as a person during his 13, 14 years here. He was criticized to no end early on in his career. Those early in the Chip Kelly years, where he was any good, whether he was, and you knew he was a good player because the tape told you he was a good player, but he never went after anybody on that. It's like, okay, he took his lumps, whatever. Always said he had to get better, and then everything just started to click. And when everything started to click, it was funny. That was the year they won the Super Bowl. That was the year where he just kind of, I don't want to say he had a 180 because I think he was popular at that point, but he just went to the other stratosphere when he decided to one up Chase Utley. I really wanted to ask him that question in his career, and maybe he'll answer it afterwards. I'm like, did you watch Chase Utley's parade speech when the Phillies won and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to top this. I'm going to find some way to top this, and I don't think anyone's ever going to top it.
Yeah, I agree with that because you'll never have anybody who can tap into what he was able to tap into. And even if they do win again, you're probably not going to have somebody who understands the city like he does. And by the way, we were talking about this last week. I forget why we brought it up, Jody, but he's also really good. That factors into it as well because I brought up Chris Long. Chris Long, had that same kind of swag at the end of his career, winning a Super Bowl. He had the fur coat on, had the interesting personality you see in his podcast, but he was a role player here. He was a role player. You can only go so far, even though he's a really good role player. You can only go so far. Jason's an all pro. Right. And he ended his career all pro, year after year after year. Again, I'm talking about him in the past tense. He hasn't retired yet, but all indications. Yeah. So I think you got to be really good as well. And he's really good. And that factors into it in a big, big, big way. You don't have Allen Iverson talking at his level of stardom or anybody, people like Bryce Harper, but not to that level. Not to that level.
I feel like he was on that Chase Utley level, but he's no doubt a Hall of Famer. There's no question. It's when he gets in, not if. And but when I know I'm comparing athletes here, but when Chase was in his prime, you knew he was probably going to the Hall of Fame, and then injuries kind of put that on the back burner. But Jason just got better, and it's
kind of amazing. Ended his career.
It is. At 36 years old, he's the best center in football. Yeah. Now it's probably going to be Creed Humphrey for the next decade, but
he's carrying on the couple bad snaps a game though tradition. Creed Humphrey.
Oh yeah, he did it in the Super Bowl.
He's terrible. It was terrible with the snaps in the Super Bowl. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah,
but, and that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why I thought Jason Kelce might stay. And again, I didn't watch the all 22, just watching it as a regular fan on TV like everybody else. Jason Kelce played badly against the Bucs in the final game of the year.
He did.
Do you really want to go out on that note? Do you want to be the guy who walks away playing your worst game of the year and the biggest game of the year in the playoffs? I thought Jason might have to look in the mirror on that one and go, yeah, I can't do it. I can't walk away after that game. Everybody wants to walk away on their own terms. And if he does make that announcement today, more power to him. He absolutely deserves it. He played lousy in his last game. I didn't think he'd want to walk away after that.
This final game, did he average negative yards per carry or something?
Well, I always say these things can go in two different ways. I think, I get it from the standpoint of what Jody's saying, but all right. So you had a bad game and you want to go through the grind of 17 more in the playoffs, hopefully to make up for one game. But you can look at it as man, I'm sick of dealing with people like Vita Vea. I'm 36 years old. You can look at it and say it's a wake up call and saying, I don't want to do this anymore. and we'll see which way it goes. But, combine talk, I always say, everybody makes a big deal out of so-and-so met with so-and-so. I always point out, and especially the top 30 visits, because they're more important, but they could also go in a negative direction. So everyone, the Eagles must have interest in so-and-so because they're going to bring him in on a top 30
They must
visit.
not have interest in that person.
They might be trying to rule him out, or they might rule him out when he's here, like Darius Geis. Everybody remember Darius Geis? So he came up and everybody was saying, the Eagles are having him on a top 30. They're interested in Darius Geis. Well, he showed up and he's arguing with Deuce Staley, and they said, hey, here's the door. Don't let it hit you in the ass. And they ruled him out. So everything can go in two different directions. It can go like Jody went and said, you know what? I don't want to go out like this. Or he might have an epiphany and say, well, these guys aren't going anywhere. And this might be the end of the road.
Yeah, and you think about the visits, John, maybe one of my favorite stories ever. I know crossing over sports, but I remember interviewing, it wasn't Don Nelson, it was Don Nelson Jr., who became the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, and got it directly from Cuban. When Dirk Nowitzki was drafted, the Mavs specifically did not bring Dirk Nowitzki in for a visit because they knew they wanted him. They had already seen him. They
didn't want to convince themselves out of it.
They wanted to keep it under wraps that they loved Dirk Nowitzki, and they hoped Nowitzki fell to them. And oh, by the way, Nowitzki was picked before them. They immediately traded their first-round pick, tractor trailer plus another pick to get up to get him. Oh, they had to have Dirk Nowitzki. They didn't bring him in just because of that. So it's a great point that you bring up, John. Oh, people read into who you brought in for your 30 visits or whatever. Sometimes it's a misdirect that you bring a guy in because you don't really want him, that a guy you really want you won't invite because you don't want to show that you're interested in him. So it goes a couple of different ways. Man, this is turning into a bummer of a day. Yeah, we start talking about Fletcher Cox retiring. Now we're adding to the mix. It looks like Jason Kelce's retiring. It was that Super Bowl win in 2017, really only 5 years ago today. All of a sudden today, it now seems like a decade and a half ago.
Yeah, well, it was a decade and a half ago. Now that whatever Jason decides to do, one of my favorite debates every offseason is the best brother combo in NFL. And boy, do you get the Manning stand so pissed off when you mentioned how dare I'm like, oh, hold on a second. Jason might be one of the best centers of all time. Travis might end up being one of the best tight ends of all time. Last time I checked, Eli ain't the greatest quarterback of all time.
No, I'm not. Eli's, that's going to be a conversation we've had many times, but Eli Manning is not a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think Jody's on board with me there. You can't be a 500 quarterback with 2 runs and be a Hall of Fame quarterback. You can't.
They're the worst team to ever win a Super Bowl at 9-7. They shouldn't. I always argue this.
I give them all the credit in the world.
I give them all the credit in the world too.
Same thing. I would argue with Eagles fans. I would argue with Eagles fans about Nick Foles because you have this weird. The guy deserves all the credit for that run, but he's not. And it's silly that some have brought it up, but they've used that term Hall of Fame. He's not even close to being a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's not a great starting quarterback, as he's proven over a long career. He had a couple nice runs. He had the 27-2, and they were weirdly unbelievable. So and I've always compared him to Vinnie Johnson.
Boy, that's an old school.
Yeah, the old NBA player, the microwave, who, on a particular day, if Vinnie Johnson was hot, give me Vinnie Johnson, man. He's going to put up 40. But over the long haul, give me Isaiah Thomas. Consistent greatness, bang, bang, bang. And that's the difference. But yeah, Eli's not a Hall of Famer. Travis is already. Jason is going to be. Yeah, you can make the argument the Kelces are better than the Mannings, but
the Mannings 10 combined all pros first team pro selections.
By the way, I'm Jody's probably heard me say this. Peyton, now that's a different category. That's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I argue the greatest regular season quarterback of all time because of that consistency. But yeah, Eli, no, he's not holding his water in that family.
All right. So again, this is not official. John gave you was that a Kelce tweet? You're taking that directly off his
That
Twitter
was a
account?
Kelce tweet. Press conference sets 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
Oh, it is. You got the time now, too. All right. So we
Yes.
know where McMullen's going after the show's over and done with, heading into the South Philadelphia. I did see this over the weekend, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together in my own mind. Maybe I should have. Maybe this individual did. 'Tis the season to be mocked. And when I say mock, I'm not talking about putting someone down. I'm talking about drafts that everyone's got their own mock. You got a mock draft out yet, Kerr? Do you have a mock draft out yet?
I do one mock draft and it's a joke. I don't do mock trades. I just go, this player would be the best fit on this team, and everybody goes, well, you're wrong. I'm like, well, maybe I am, but that's how I do a mock draft. I do one a year, and it's in April.
And it's in April. Good that you haven't jumped in. But others have. That's their job. That's their gig. That's what they have to do. So they got to do it. You could probably go out on the internet, take 45 minutes, and you can find 40 different mock drafts if you want. Then and it's certainly everybody's done
especially as someone who gets chart beat for CBS and knows a lot of the analytics and stuff, they're popular. People like mock drafts.
People love to check out mock drafts. And so if there's probably, if I'm just using round number 20 that go round 1 through 7, there's 50 that go round 1. So everybody's got a first round mock. And then the closer you get to the draft, everybody stretch it out and go full 7 rounds. I did see a mock draft this weekend that at number 22 had the Philadelphia Eagles drafting not a quarterback, not an edge rusher in case Hassan Reddick isn't here, not a offensive tackle, which John has leaned on and said, Georgia, look at the depth at this offensive tackle. They're going to get a good one.
This offensive line class is loaded, by the way.
That's top, man. It's unbelievable. That's why, but I say, how he might target somebody. He might trade up. Quinyon Mitchell alerts, but I'll probably have to go up to get a player like that. So if he's forced to sit, remember, I always say it takes 2 to tango. Nobody realized, well, he'll just trade. You needed somebody to trade with.
Yeah, this isn't Madden where the CPU just accepts your trade.
Exactly.
So we know what the Eagles roster is right now. So there's been 3 or 4 positions that have been most likely that the Eagles are going to take guy. It all depends on valuation of the draft that day goes in front of all of that stuff in corner, tackle, edge. If you're going to be forced to trade Hassan Reddick, they had the Eagles at number 22 taking a center. Maybe they knew ahead of time that this was going to be the Jason Kelce decision on Monday when they put this mock out. And I didn't check the date. Could have been mocked yesterday. I saw it yesterday. Could have been 2 days before, 4 years, a week and a half, 10 days, 2 months before. I don't know. I wasn't planning on having to replace Jason Kelce. Jackson Pepper Johnson from Oregon is, in some people's minds, the number 1 center in this draft. Howie Roseman likes to talk about drafting in the trenches. When was the last time Howie took a center with a first-round pick? I don't remember that. I don't think it's happened.
He took a center in the 2nd round.
Second is different than first, is it not? I don't know that they're going to go there, but if Jason Kelce, you're watching Jason Kelce walk out the door. No, you got Juergens to move there, but then you need a guard. Maybe you liked what Juergens did at guard this year. Any chance they take a center with their first-round pick, boys?
I would bet more they would take a tackle and switch with the guard than that.
Domino effect. What's Jeff Stoutland's opinion about moving guys from position to position to position, John?
Well, he doesn't like moving parts.
That's what I'm saying.
Now they have a plan in place, and I think that plan is they're not going away from it. And Cam Juergens is going to be the center next season, and then you got to figure out right guard. And they already have a guy in house that they drafted to be the right guard. But I don't think that they're going to say, "Oh, Tyler Steen," they're going to give him the job. he got one opportunity against Dallas. He didn't play well. I think he'll get an opportunity, but you might see them sign a free agent, mid-level free agent guard, and sort of set up a competition with Tyler Steen. But I don't think they're going away from Cam Jurgens. I
Or
think
they
they have
could
a
be
lot of
cool,
confidence.
or they could be cool and just pay Kevin Zeitler whatever he wants.
Yeah, I don't think they're going that
They're
way
not going to do
either.
that.
You know, I think they need to get younger. I think they want to get younger. So it's about, we've talked about it with the defensive tackles. I think that's the case with the offensive line, trying to get Cam Jurgens involved, trying to get Tyler Steen involved. Yeah, I don't think they're changing. I don't think they're looking to say, oh, we'll keep Cam Jurgens at guard and draft a center. And plus the value, they don't value that position, interior offensive line, as much as offensive tackle. There are certain positions they'll draft in the first round. We all know. And there's certain positions they won't unless there's a historic player. Is he the historic type of prospect like Christian McCaffrey is at running back? I don't think so. So, yeah, I doubt that, but I see why people would do that. And they're one of their 97 mock drafts.
Right.
John McMullen, do you do mock drafts?
I do one like you, one first round mock draft in April, one and only, 1.0 and only.
I always call it the wrong mock draft.
Unfortunately, I do a couple Eagles centric mock drafts during the process, which I hate, but people love them. So, and they love to complain. People love it. That's all they do. You're an idiot when you project. A couple years ago, I got Cam Jurgens right. I didn't get Cam Jurgens right because I thought they should take him, or because I thought, he was a fit, because I got some good intel that they were going to take Cam Jurgens if he was there. And I got killed. I got crucified. Nobody apologized. By the way, I rarely do this, but I got to bring this. Someone on the chat said, Jody and Jeff, I embarrassed myself and lost all credibility by not claiming Eli Manning was a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Really?
Embarrassed.
I don't think you're alone in the camp there.
Oh my God. 234 starts, NFL starts, pretty large sample size.
Okay.
117 wins.
This is my stupid argument for Eli. If his last name wasn't Manning, and if his name was John McMullen, is he a Hall of Famer?
In his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 last 7 seasons as an NFL quarterback, he had one season with a winning record.
Yeah, and I think the very distinguished panel of those who vote for the Hall of Fame, who Jeff Kerr just disparaged. I can't believe you went there. I'm
just throwing out a name, and I was going to say Jody McDonald, but John McMullen. No.
You can use my name, use John's name, use anybody's name. Doesn't matter. If you think that the guys who vote for the Hall of Fame, who I think take their job very seriously, and some of the most astute football writers, journalists are going to go, oh, I got to vote for Eli because he's a Manning. And no, that's just dumb. I don't believe that's the case. He won 2 Super Bowls. He beat an undefeated Patriot team. The Giants defense, between you and I, more so beat that undefeated Patriots team in the Super Bowl than Eli did, even though they gave him the MVP. How the hell they did that, I don't know. No, Eli, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but I don't think the debate comes down to, is it because he's a Manning or not? It's because, what do you just give his regular season record?
117 and 117 as a starting quarterback. Dead 500.
That's where the debate comes in. He's a 500 quarterback. Do 500 quarterbacks get in the Hall of Fame? I don't care if his last name's Manning, Elway, Marino. Doesn't matter. If you're a 500 quarterback, you shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
No. And by the way, he deserves all the credit in the world for those 2 runs. Now, you'll say those 2 teams have won. The Giants teams, it was their defensive line both times who really dominated the game. But he played well. I'm not trying to take away from him. he played well in those runs. Those runs don't make him a Hall of Fame quarterback. You know, it's interesting. The other guy with 2 Super Bowl rings, and it's eerie. But the other guy with 2 Super Bowl rings that's not in the Hall of Fame is Jim Plunkett, who shouldn't be, by the way. And Jim Plunkett started 144 games. Guess what his record is, guys?
What?
72-72.
Really?
Is that not eerie?
Right on the money.
Is that not eerie? But yeah, they're not Hall of Fame quarterbacks, but they had great runs and they won 2 Super Bowls.
And, you know,
It's
Jim
the Super
Jim
Bowl
was a really
thing.
good quarterback too for a couple years, but you're right. They, like overall, the body of work says no.
Yeah.
Plunkett played for some bad Patriot teams.
Oh
that
yeah.
he couldn't have lifted and won games with no matter what.
And by the
They're
way,
just
it's
bad
not
teams.
Eli's fault that Eli played with some bad Giants teams at the end, but he wasn't elevating them, to say the least. He's a solid starting quarterback who had a couple good runs. There's nothing wrong with that, but he's not a Hall of Famer. It's not Hall of Fame. And people overrate that. And Jody knows this because I've said it, Jeff, and I know we've gotten off on this tangent. We got to let you go. You got to pack for Vegas.
Yeah.
But, you know, when John Elway was losing Super Bowls, he was a great quarterback. When he was winning Super Bowls, he was a complimentary player. That was Terrell Davis's team. And he was able to get over the hump. They had a very good roster. Same with Peyton Manning, his second Super Bowl. He was terrible that season.
He won great.
It's kind of amazing they won. And he was great for all those years and wasn't winning. He's only got one. He's only got one. Then he won his second, his worst season. People way overrate those rings. Way
Agreed.
overrated.
Somehow we got off on a Manning tangent.
Well,
brothers, that's
it's
how it
my
all
fault
I got
because I brought up the
insulted.
Kelce.
You had to go to the brother conversation. It's all your fault, Kerr. Jason
Yeah, it's
Kelce's
all my-
retiring. Fletcher Cox is thinking about retiring. We're talking about Eli Manning as a Hall of Fame.
I didn't lose
Shame on all of us.
I didn't lose some of my credibility. I lost all of my credibility.
all right.
All
Hey,
of it.
you're out, McMullen. You're out.
Forget about a silly streamer who's commenting. We appreciate those who do jump in. We really appreciate Jeff Kerr when he joins us each and every single Monday. Are you going down to South Philly or are you going to Vegas? Which one you doing, Kerr?
Well, I gotta go down to South Philly to go to Vegas anyway. So
there you go.
Go down
Smart.
South
You get
Philly.
right from the Kelce retirement to the plane. That's the Jeff Kerr.
By the
we know
way,
and
what are
love.
you doing in Vegas? I didn't ask. We got to
I'm
get
bowling, believe it or not. I'm
Oh,
gonna
shit,
go
no way.
get beat by pros this week.
When in doubt, Jeff Kerr's bowling. JK, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks. That's Jeff
Sounds
Kerr
great.
from
Thank you.
CBS
Thanks,
Sports
bud.
with us on Birds 360.
Sorry, I got a RSVP for Jason's presser because it's going to be a zoo.
All right,
So I
we'll
got to
let-
do these things on the air.
We'll let John do that. Meanwhile, Birds fans, we've got a chance for you to take part in a great deal. Right now, here's your chance to save up to 40% on your car insurance, and you can do so with one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call one of the 2 managing partners, either Jim or Fran. They'll both help you out. Tell them you're a friend of JAKIB Sports and also Birds 365.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!